and I'm going to give you a little tour of how S3 appears in the AWS console. So this is a list of my buckets that I have in this demonstration account. You'll notice that one of them is lit orange. This is public. Well, you should go to your S3 console and look for anything that's lit orange that says public and make sure the objects in that should be public. That's an obvious starting place, right? But you can see a lot of these say something else. They say a few other things. A bunch of them say that objects can be public, right? So the bucket isn't public, but the objects can be public. And you'll notice here, there's no indication if the objects are, right? It just tells you they can be. So let's go down a little further, and I'm going to show you what that looks like in more detail. And then in this one, the bucket and objects not public. So this, when you see that, you probably are protected against almost any form of public exposure of objects. And I'll tell you why I said probably shortly. Let's go ahead and walk through how these buckets are configured in the console. All this is obviously available via CLI and via infrastructure as code tools, et cetera. But I just think it's good to understand how these work in the actual console. So actually, let's just make a new one. All right, and I'm not going to copy any settings from an existing bucket because I want to walk you through these. So a number of these features in this configure options like versioning and server access logging, you probably, certainly I would argue you probably want server access logging. I'm not going to turn this on now because it'll take a little time to configure. You probably want a tag for visibility. Object level logging, you also probably want, if you really want to know what's going on. I mean, it's only going to help you in retrospect, which in S3 attacks can be like little consolation because they can be pretty devastating. I'm going to show you how to drain an entire S3 bucket that is not set to public in about 30 seconds as part of this. Encryption. So it's better than nothing to use default encryption. However, the way S3 encryption works, if you use the default server-side AWS encryption, anyone who has what AWS thinks is legitimate access control receives a decrypted version of the object. So the exploits I'm going to show you, I am not aware of any way to trick S3, okay? Every breach I've seen has been the result of misconfiguration where the bad actor appeared to be a legitimate actor, which means they would be receiving decrypted data from S3. So if you have a requirement that you have encryption at rest for everything, and you should, this is kind of your easy answer. But what you really should be doing is using KMS keys, because getting additional API access to access your own keys it raises the bar for the attackers need to exploit your posture, your security posture. Request metrics, probably also worth doing in most cases.